What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel, and I am back with yet another schedule preview and record prediction video. And today we are going to be going through the 2020 Memphis Tigers. So Memphis was a team last year that, of course, was really good. They ended up making their first ever New Year's Six Bowl, and they won an American Athletic Championship. But this year they are losing their head coach, Mike Norvell, and lots of talent on the defensive side and lots of wide receivers. So, in my opinion, Memphis is not going to be as good as they were last year, and they have been for the past couple of years. But they are returning their quarterback, Brady White, and it feels like he's been in college football forever. He's a sixth-year senior, and they're also returning their running back, Gainwell. So Memphis still should be pretty decent this year. So let's see if Memphis can surprise me and lots of other people en route to another American Athletic Championship, or if Memphis, in losing Mike Norvell, is going to be going through a rebuilding year. All right, here's the schedule for the Memphis Tigers, and you'll look down there. Their 2019 record was 12-2, highlighted by wins at Cincinnati twice. They had to beat Cincinnati twice, once in the regular season, once in the American Athletic Championship game, and they went 12-1 through that span. But then they faced Penn State in a New Year's Six Bowl, and while it was a shootout like Mike Norvell's used to playing, Penn State just ended up scoring more points than Memphis. It was 53-39. Penn State ended up winning that game. So that's how Memphis got to 12-2. You'll look up there. Their home games are going to be in that Memphis blue, and their away games are going to be in gray. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the Memphis Tigers schedule and their first game of the season. It should be a fairly easy one for Memphis, a good get-off game against the Arkansas State Red Wolves. Now, Arkansas State plays in the Sun Belt, not one of the better teams in the Sun Belt, in my opinion, and I believe that Memphis shouldn't have much of a problem here with the Red Wolves. But their next game of the season in Week 2 is going to be a very interesting game. It's a road game against Purdue. So Purdue is returning their quarterback, Jack Plummer, and they are returning wide receiver Rondale Moore, who was out with injury last year, and they threw for 1 billion yards last year, even without Rondale Moore. So now imagine what Purdue's offense can do this year with Rondale Moore back. It's going to be scary, and Purdue is going to end up being able to surprise a lot of teams this year, I do believe. Now Purdue is going to be coming off a game against Nebraska, and a game that I think Purdue could win, but ultimately I think they will lose. At least as of right now, it's going to be a very close game against Nebraska, first game of the season. So it's a conference game. Purdue might be a little beat up. So Memphis could have the early edge here, but I'm going to give the edge to the Purdue Boilermakers. I just feel like they have way too much offensive talent. And while I do think Memphis does have a lot of good offensive talent, I think Rondale Moore is way too explosive, and Memphis's defense is not going to know what hit him as soon as Rondale Moore steps on that field. So I'm going to give the Boilermakers the win here against the Memphis Tigers. I do see it being a very close game, in a game that I do think Memphis could win, but ultimately I think Purdue will win. Then a home game against the Houston Cougars. Now Houston is losing quarterback De'Aaron King, although he didn't play a lot last year because of an injury and other factors. So Houston, while they do still have some great talent, it is nowhere near the talent that Memphis has. So Memphis should be able to come off in what I think is going to be a loss at Purdue and be able to get a bounce-back win here at home against Houston. Then the next game of the season is going to be against the University of Texas San Antonio, or UTSA, the Roadrunners. They're not a very good team, and Memphis, again, should start building some momentum coming off that win against Houston with another win here against the Roadrunners. Now, I know it's a road game, and home field advantage is home field advantage, but Memphis is just a way far too talented team, and I feel like this team definitely can score a lot of points this year, as they have done so many years in the past. And I think they're going to be able to score a lot of points here against the Roadrunners. So as I just said, they're going to want to build momentum against Houston, UTSA, because they have a big road game against SMU. Now, this game was College Game Day last year, and it was an absolutely phenomenal game, and a game that Memphis ended up controlling most of. SMU started to come back towards the end, but ultimately Memphis ended up winning a shootout 54-47. And SMU is returning their quarterback in Shane Buechele. He is coming back, and while SMU is losing Sam Prochet. They still have a lot of good weapons in the game. This game, I think, could be fairly interesting to watch, just as interesting as last year because teams are losing a lot of talent on both sides of the football this year. Both teams are. And Memphis is losing their head coach, Mike Norvell. Ultimately, I see this game being able to go either way, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Memphis because I feel like Brady White, just being a six-year senior, has a lot of experience, and their running back, Gainwell, is one of the better ones in the group of five, if not in the entire country. So I see Memphis being able to barely edge out SMU, but I think it's going to be a game last year where there's going to be a lot of points scored, and it's going to be a very close game. So then they get their bye week, and in my opinion, this is the absolute perfect place for a bye week. While Memphis does have a lot of tough schedules remaining in the second half of their season, they're coming off a road game against SMU, which, by the way, is going to be a Thursday game. Coming off a road game against SMU, and it's before a big home game against the UCF Golden Knights. Now, this game is going to be played at home, and it is a Friday game. Probably going to end up being a Friday night game. Now, UCF, in my opinion, is one of, if not the best group of five team this year, like Memphis is, but I do feel like UCF is the more talented team than Memphis on both sides of the ball. UCF just returning a lot more, returning their quarterback Dylan Gabriel, also returning quarterback Daryl Mack, and they possibly could be returning quarterback Mackenzie Milton if he ends up getting back into football shape and he is making a speedy recovery to being able to play. And I like Mackenzie Milton's chances as to be playing, maybe not early in the season, but definitely later in the season, like the game here against Memphis. I think it's a game that Memphis is going to lose at home. I just think UCF is the more talented team, and losing Mike Norvell is going to be big because while I do think Memphis is going to be able to score a lot of points next year, I don't think they're going to be able to score as many points in the game that I have UCF winning. Then another home game against the Temple Owls. Now, you always got to watch out for Temple because they're a sneaky team, and they usually beat a team that they shouldn't every single year. If not, they make the game close. So maybe you could put this game on upset alert, but I think it being at home for Memphis is just too big of a factor in a game that I think they're going to be able to bounce back off a loss and be able to win. Then they get yet another tough road game against the Cincinnati Bearcats. I really like the Cincinnati team this year, returning quarterback Desmond Ritter, returning their running back Michael Warren. They're hoping to get James Wiggins, the safety, back, and he was pretty darn good in 2018. And Luke Fickell's a defensive coach, so Cincinnati is always going to have a pretty solid defense. And I think Cincinnati's defense this year, especially if they can get James Wiggins back, they're going to be able to shut down Memphis' offense. I don't think for the entire game, but I do think for most of the game. And it being a home game for Cincinnati is absolutely huge. So I think Cincinnati is going to get their revenge from last season and be able to avenge 2 losses against the Memphis Tigers. Then a home game against USF, and they're finally going to be able to break a bad momentum streak and be able to win this one. UCF, not a very good football team. Quentin Flowers left a couple years ago, and last year USF just could not replace him, and I don't think they're going to be able to this year, so Memphis will get the win. But then they get another tough road game against the Navy midshipmen. Now, Navy does have to replace Malcolm Perry at quarterback, but they still have a lot of great talent and what I think is the best armed forces team this year. They surprised a lot of us last year by going with the record that they did. But Navy and Memphis, these two teams are pretty evenly matched in my opinion, but I do think the game being at home for Navy is going to push it over the edge in a game that I see Navy being able to win. So then they should be able to bounce back from that one in the home game against UT Martin. Now, this is an FCS team and a game that I think they pretty easily should be able to win. So then their final game of the season is a road game against Tulane. Tulane last year started off on a really good momentum streak, and it kind of died way towards the end of the season. It started with the game against Memphis. Now, I think Memphis is going to be able to pretty handily win this one, and what I think is going to be a strong end to the season. All right, so now with everything being said and considered for the Memphis Tigers, I have them going 8-4. Now, I think I predicted 5 losses for Memphis here, but chances are Mike Norvell's recruits are going to be able to score enough points to win one of those games, and I think the most likely win is on the road at SMU. Maybe they can pull off an upset against Cincinnati, UCF, Navy. I think Purdue would be an upset in my opinion, but they just have too much talent to do any less in my opinion. Of course, I just said they're returning quarterback Brady White, and I don't know if you know, but he's pretty darn good. He has a lot of experience. As I said, he's a sixth-year senior. They're also returning their running back Gainwell, who is one of the most explosive running backs in Group of Five, if not in college football, in my opinion. Yes, they're losing their wide receiver Gibson, but still got some pretty good guys there. And their defense, while it is losing a lot, I think could be one of the better ones in the American Athletic this year. But replacing their head coach, Mike Norvell, is going to be hard, and big reason why I have them going 8-4. All right, now let's move on to the record range. I take this team's worst-case scenario along with their best-case scenario. It's where I expect them to be this year. So worst-case scenario for me is 6-6. Like I said, the 5 games that I was leaning towards the other side. In addition, I also see them losing to Temple here. But I definitely see Memphis being able to make a bowl game. They're just going to score way too many points this year, and they're going to be firing on all cylinders on the offensive side. I think while Gibson is not easily replaceable, I do think other guys are going to step up in this Memphis program. But they have a lot of tough games on the road at Purdue, on the road at SMU, on the road at Cincinnati, on the road at Navy, at home against UCF, and then at home against Temple. Just a lot of tough games for the Memphis program this year. And I could see them losing all 6 of those games that I just mentioned. Maybe they'll win one of those and lose another one. But I see absolute worst-case scenario for Memphis being 6-6. So then Memphis' absolute best-case scenario, in my opinion, is 10-2. Like I said a little bit ago, and like I've said throughout this video, they're still going to have an explosive offense because they are returning Brady White. They are returning running back Gainwell. And as I just said, while Gibson is not easily replaceable, guys are going to step it up this year. And while I do think Mike Norvell is unreplaceable at this Memphis program, they still have Mike Norvell's recruits. Mike Norvell's players are still there, and Mike Norvell is a guy that likes to score a lot of points. So this Memphis offense is going to be explosive, and as I just said, a defense that I think has a potential to be one of the better ones in the American Athletic. But their schedule is too hard, in my opinion, for them to go any better than 10-2. Their non-conference is harder than it was last year, and they have games on the road this year that they played at home last year. Like they played at home to SMU and played at home to Cincinnati. Well, now they get both of those 2 teams on the road, and Memphis is not going to be as good as they were last year. So I think those the 2 most likely games I see them losing in this scenario are UCF and Cincinnati. But maybe they can shock UCF at home and lose another game on the road. Just a lot of tricky games, and I don't see Memphis going any better than 10-2. But my current prediction for the 2020 Memphis Tigers is 8-4. All right, that's going to do it for my schedule preview and record prediction for the 2020 Memphis Tigers. And if you guys enjoyed, please do leave a like. Also consider subscribing if you are brand new to the channel or just enjoy my content. And if you haven't done so already, please do leave a comment down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on the 2020 Memphis Tigers. And as always, until next time, remember, play hard, but tailgate harder. See y'all in the next video. Goodbye.